Good morning, everyone. So we're just waiting for everyone to hop on board. My name is Christine Brown. I'm the Director of Member Engagement here at the Chamber, and it's great to see all of you today. We're continuing our Path Forward series of continuing education here at the Chamber. And we're going to have Abby hopping on board with us soon. There she is. I see her. Hi, Abby. How are you? It's like you're muted right now.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. So we're going to go ahead and get started here in a moment. We'll go ahead and wait for more folks to hop on board since it's just before the top of the hour. Just as a quick reminder, I know everyone is muted as they're coming into the room, but if you have any questions during this Q&A session with Abby, go ahead and use the chat function to ask those questions. And we have reserved some time at the end of the call in order to address whatever questions you may have that come up during our Q&A session. So we're going to do our prepared Q&A first, so the questions that members sent in ahead of time and questions that we as chamber staff have had over the last few weeks. And then we'll go ahead and move into live questions from today. And yeah, just throw them into chat and we will get as many answered as we can. So I'm going to probably go ahead and start things in about a minute or so. So just hang tight. All right, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I know some folks are still hopping on at the moment, but we'll go ahead and keep all the time, everyone's time as protected as possible, and keep these calls to about a half an hour, which is what we've done up until this point. Once again, I'm Christine Brown, the Director of Member Engagement, in case you missed my spiel previously. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm coming up on my 2-month work anniversary here at the Chamber. It's been a crazy time to be on board, to say the least, but it's been an incredible opportunity to serve the business community through this crisis. And right now, our focus, as we're slowly reemerging, slowly reopening from COVID, to figure out the path forward together. And so a lot of our work is focused on advocacy. We are revising our public policy platform to accommodate the special circumstances that COVID has offered the business community, finding ways to work with legislators, lawmakers, the executive branch of Nevada government, local city governments, Washoe County, in order to figure out how best to move forward while balancing the important issues of public health and also the economy. So we are actively working on those things, and we're actively keeping everyone informed, at least as best we can. Any information we get that comes into the chamber, we are pushing out on a daily basis. So I'm hoping that everyone is getting their daily email dispatches from Ann Silver. We're cranking those out every day, making sure that you get the most accurate information. And we're hosting calls like this in order to connect you to not only resources, but to the people who are on the front lines addressing this crisis, addressing its fallout from an economic perspective, from a social services perspective. And with that, we are really excited to have Abby Badolato with us today from Washoe County. She heads up the Senior Services Division of the Human Services Department. She's been with the agency for 16 years, and she spent 13 of those years working with Child Protective Services, and has since been working with our senior community. And it's a pleasure to have you with us today, Abby.
Thank you for having me. This is much less threatening and scary than the 170 I gave a presentation to on Tuesday.
So good. We are a friendly bunch, so this is a safe space.
Perfect. I see some friendly faces and names that I know. So like you said, I've been with Washoe County for over 16 years now, and I spent the first part of that in Child Protective Services doing a lot of different things, investigations, long-term case management. I supervised. I was in foster care licensing and child care licensing and institutional investigations. So I dabbled in quite a bit while I was over on that side. And then I had an opportunity about 3.5 years ago to come over to the senior services side. And I'm the coordinator over our HSA senior services. For those of you that don't know, senior services used to be its own department. And about 3 years ago, it officially merged into Human Services Agency, and so we're all under the same umbrella. So Human Services Agencies goes from birth to death, and so we cover the lifespan. So that was a change that took place several years ago, and prior to that, they were their own department. So thank you for having me here today, and I look forward to answering any questions I can.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. I know for a lot of us, seniors have been on our mind, through COVID. It's exposed our most vulnerable populations. And one of those, of course, is our senior population, folks who are over 65, and particularly those who have pre-existing conditions that could exacerbate the disease. And so, we appreciate, you taking some time to shed some light on what is happening with that community, so that we as the business community can properly respond and step in, where we can be helpful and where it's appropriate. So I'll just go ahead and launch right into our prepared questions. And again, a reminder to everyone on the call, if you have a question that comes up in your mind that becomes top of mind during the call, just throw it into the chat box in Zoom, and we will go ahead and address those questions at the end of the call. So I think a good jumping off point would be to just give us the lay of the land for how senior services have changed at the county through COVID.
So we closed our doors to the public on March 17th. And I know that because it was St. Patrick's Day, and we had corned beef and hash as our meal that day. But we, in the weeks coming up to that, it was that if and when we had to do it, and then we did it overnight. So senior services has many different categories. I don't know if that's the right word, but our nutrition program is our biggest. And so we have congregate meal sites, which are our senior centers. And we also do home delivered meals, otherwise known as Meals on Wheels. And so I'll probably do most of my questions and answers towards that category, but we do have a senior services case management unit as well. And I will just say, nothing much changed with them other than in-person visits. I actually think that the individuals, about 180 that are being served through the case management part of it, those that have homemaker services have continued to do so if they wanted to. And our social workers and caseworkers are probably making more frequent contact now than they did before, because they are doing almost that weekly check-in by phone to see how their clients are doing. So as far as our nutrition program went, the idea behind senior centers is to socialize and congregate together, and that's exactly the opposite of what we want to be doing right now. So we closed our doors to in-person or in-house meal service on March 17th, and we provided a to-go option. And we worked with the state because funding-wise, you're actually supposed to eat in a congregated session or in a congregation. They were very understanding, and we stopped doing signatures, so we didn't start have the spread that way. And so we are serving our meals on a to-go basis. So our 9th Street Center, people don't have to reserve a meal ahead of time, which has always been the case, and they can come between 11:30 and 12:15 to receive a meal. This is for 60 and over, so senior services are funding a senior older adult is 60 and over. So anyone 60 and over can come to the center and get their meal with the suggested $2 donation. And we have been still seeing about 170 people coming to the 9th Street Center every day.
Wow.
And our other locations, and Donald's very familiar with our Sparks location, we've been doing the to-go meals there as well. And so the only locations that we had served and that we aren't is Cold Springs. They opted out. They said that they didn't need us to come out there anymore. at least for right now, but every day they have it available to them should they want to. And one other location, Neal Road, because City of Reno closed. And so other than that, we've been doing to-go services that way. I think we'll talk about the need, but we've continued our Meals on Wheels program, and it is substantially grown quite a bit. And so even though we closed our doors, we definitely didn't stop operations, and we've continued to answer the phone. Somebody's there 8 to 5 every day to answer the phone with any questions people may have. So we've continued operating, just it looks very different.
Right, absolutely. And you probably hear it a lot these days, but it bears repeating. Thank you. Thank you for what you and your team are doing for the seniors in our community. These are our parents and grandparents, and these are the people we love and care about, and the most vulnerable. So thank you for keeping those services going through the COVID crisis, and getting creative in keeping those services going for the people we love. So would you say, in terms of the rising demand, so it sounds like things have in some ways leveled out, as some services have perhaps decreased and then others have increased. What has the demand been like on your staff and on your volunteers? Have you been able to meet the need with the current staff and volunteers you have?
We've been fortunate in that respect. So with closing the doors to many of our different programs and all across the county, our own staff within senior services have been able to be repurposed. So, a lot of their job function was that day-to-day in-person services. And so we were able to repurpose some of our staff to help with the meal delivery program. We did initially lose some volunteers because many of our volunteers are older adults, and so they didn't want to come and volunteer, which is completely understandable. But we actually saw a huge increase in people calling and wanting to be a volunteer. So we have started to onboard volunteers again. We took a break from that because between everything else, we just didn't have the bandwidth to onboard our volunteers. But we've been able to actually maintain okay with the current staff and our volunteers. Now, as we start to reopen, and I don't have any dates or anything like that, but as we look at starting to reopen, we're going to have to kind of navigate these staff members that have been repurposed into being a delivery driver or making wellness calls. What does that look like? And so we'll have to work through that, but I will have to say that the community's been great in contacting us and reaching out and wanting to see however they can help us. They want to do that.
Right. That's something Northern Nevada time and again has proven that it's good at, is rising to the occasion. So, this has been no different. And I'm glad to hear that you've had an influx of people offering to volunteer, even though the onboarding process is admittedly perhaps a little bit more difficult and, and trickier given the current situation. What are some of your biggest concerns and what are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced in providing services to seniors so far?
I think my biggest concern through all this has been the social isolation piece of it. So, we use the term social distancing. I really think it should be physical distancing and not that the reason that we have senior centers and that we have, grants that purposely only will let you use their money if you have people congregate, it's so we don't isolate our seniors. And so that's been our biggest concern through this is, how do we maintain some social connections for those individuals? And so one of the things that we did, we every day we learn something new and how to change how we're doing this, as everybody has had to do. But we started doing our COVID-19 screening questions prior to our meal deliveries going out. We had a bit of a scare and went, oh, we should probably do this. So those calls, we noticed there was some older adults who they didn't want to get off the phone. We asked them the questions and then they kept talking. And so we actually turned these screening calls into wellness checks. And so it's not just the screening call, but it's a check-in of how are you? Are your needs being met? Tell me something good that happened today, or tell me something good from this week. And so we've repurposed the meaning of those calls. So they're not just, have you been going through the checklist? It's to connect, because that might be the only phone call they get all week. And then when they get the delivery, that might be the only person that they see all week. And that's always been a concern of our home delivered meal clients, is that social isolation. And that's the concept behind Meals on Wheels, is that they get a friendly visitor. And so we've had to adapt through this and what that looks like. But yeah, the isolation piece of it, and what does that look like moving forward? People would come and play pool all day or play bingo or do those things, and they're not able to do that. So how do we continue to adapt and work through this and keep seniors and older adults engaged?
Right, absolutely. And I'm sure that, moving ahead, as the community at large, one way that we can be of service is, providing ideas, or even providing digital or alternative contexts in which people can gather, in which people can experience some semblance of community. So, if there's anyone on the call who has ideas, I'm sure that, it's open season right now for taking ideas when it comes to ways to engage seniors socially, and emotionally as well. I know that no one has a crystal ball right now, in terms of what's ahead, and there's still so much we don't know. But if you in your role are planning ahead for your future budgets, so you're looking at your 2021 budget coming up, what are some of the things that you see shifting in your budget, in order to accommodate this new normal, and what if any are some services that you're concerned may be at risk, with any potential budget cuts in the future?
Well, I think it's no secret that we're, Nevada and the rest of the country is definitely having some budgetary issues. We've been really fortunate to secure a few grants, emergency funding grants. I know that they were accepted by the BCC last week, to secure additional funding for food, nutrition services, but along with that, there was some personnel costs, some fuel costs, some of those things. So we've really seen our shift to making sure that we're able to feed our vulnerable populations, and that no one goes hungry, and we don't want people to leave the house if they don't have to. And so that was actually one of the things that we worked with the state. I know this isn't quite answering your question, but one of the things that we worked with the state, when this initially was coming through, is that our home delivered meal program has very specific criteria of getting a meal at home. And so we were able to essentially waive that criteria, that if they were over 60, they qualified, period. It didn't matter if they were homebound or not, because we're just going to say that everyone over 60 could be considered homebound based on the circumstances. And so, we've been securing those emergency fundings, but I think there's a lot of, we don't know what we don't know yet. And thankfully, Senior Services has a lot of grants that we get every year through the state and federal funds. And so we are fortunate in that respect. But I do foresee a lot of our shift going towards the senior meal program. Just to throw out some numbers, we have put over 450 individuals on our home delivered meal program, which our overall program serves 1,400 individuals. So if that gives you an idea of our increase just in the last 2.5 months, that's why our focus has been there. We have meal trucks that are aging, and as we put on new routes, we get creative on what those routes look like. So I know that that's one of the things that we've been looking at, of how can we make sure that we can keep the ones that we have alive, and is there any possibility of getting more? I think that would be one thing that we've looked at, but just really taking it day by day and trying to figure out how can we continue to do what we do, and serve the needs of the community.
Right, 100%. And in terms of this next question, and I know that it may not directly relate to a lot of the work that you and your team are doing, but when it comes to senior living facilities or assisted living homes, we've seen, at least in the Reno-Sparks metro area, and in other areas across the country, that there's a higher incidence of COVID-19, a hotspot essentially, where there might be an outbreak occurring. While some of your for instance, meal services may not be something that's applicable to someone living in that environment, what are some of the lessons that you and your team have learned in observing the phenomenon of outbreaks happening in senior living and assisted living homes, that you think will be helpful to you moving forward and figuring out how to keep seniors safe as you're providing services?
I think seeing those outbreaks makes everybody in the community really understand this, that our older adults are the most vulnerable, and that's why it's so imperative that we do everything in our power to maintain their safety and their health. And that's why we have moved towards this to-go meal platform, and we have moved towards everyone being able to get home delivered meals if they're over 60. And we even sought out money for that, that under 60s, that their physical age might be under 60, but their body isn't functioning that way. That they, I think we've all seen it. You see someone who's 50 or 60, and they don't look that. They appear much older just based on their health. And so, I think being really mindful of that and getting creative. We actually also started a grocery delivery program as well. Just we need to be mindful, and that congregation piece of it. And that's what happens in these outbreaks is people are congregating together, or they're all pressing the same elevator button, or whatever that looks like. So what can we take and make sure that we aren't doing, I don't want to say the same mistakes because it's going to happen, but how can we do everything in our power to protect our current clients and our vulnerable older adults and move forward from there. So I will say, one of the outbreaks in our local community, we were serving meals to, and so we had to adapt to that. And what does that look like, and how can we make sure they're still being fed? And so we worked with them on that as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, we are all learning so much every single day. I mean, even here in our context at the chamber, we're getting tons of calls and emails from folks who are just stepping into the reopening process and having questions about the implications. And sometimes you don't know what those implications are until, in your context, someone who is delivering a meal is right at the doorstep. And suddenly you're faced with a circumstance that you've never had to think through before. Like, do I ring the doorbell? Like, should I touch the doorknob? What are these protocols that we should be mindful of in order to keep everyone safe? And so I again applaud you and your team for thinking through all those details and learning those lessons along the way. So I think to close out the prepared question portion of the talk, and just again a reminder, if you have any questions that have come up for you, I know that we've got one in chat right now, but if you have any other ones, please go ahead and put those in chat right now, and we will get those addressed for you in just a moment. But to close, Abby, what are some of the things that you think the business community can do specifically, and even the community at large can do specifically to help you and your team serve the seniors amid COVID-19?
I have to say that the business community has already done a great deal. When everything first started shutting down, I know the casinos were very generous, and they had this food, and so they donated it. And I think, granted, everyone's trying to still stay in business and doing those things, but to giving back to the community of, if there's something curbside special you can do for a senior who just wants to get out, but doesn't want to actually go into a restaurant and do all those pieces. But if there's something special, maybe that way that they could do. I will say that our numbers are not going to go down, and there is going to be a need for volunteers as this continues. And so I would say if people want to volunteer, and that can look in many different ways. It doesn't have to just be you're delivering meals. You could be packing the trucks and getting them ready to go. You could be a volunteer in the center who's helping us as we open our doors, guide people of, you need to go this way, and nope, you can't go that way, and maintain the 6 feet. I can see us needing an increase in volunteers, because I don't think our staff is going to be able to handle all of that, because that's going to be all new to us. I'm sure actually probably the community would know better than me of how they could help and assist moving forward. We've been really lucky to have great partners in this community, and I would defer to all you of how you can help.
Thank you. How about PPE? Is that something that you've had trouble obtaining and keeping on hand?
Initially, that was a challenge. We had the mask shortage, and that, and then it was initially don't wear a mask, and then wear a mask, and so we, went back and forth with that. We've had some generous donations come in for cloth masks for our clients. We've been pretty fortunate. The crazy thing is, if when you think about how many gloves we have to go through every week, if we're going into 1,500 homes, that's 1,500 pairs of gloves just for that certain piece of it. But we, as an agency, have been able to secure PPE, and that's actually been okay for us. There was a few moments here and there, and I think we've all kind of worked out how to wear masks and how long you can wear masks, and so I think we're good.
Good. That's good to hear. So it looks like we've got one question in chat right now, and I think we've somewhat talked about it. But Barbara wants to know if there's someone in your organization that needs people to make calls to seniors, to do wellness checks, or if you're handling the entire volume on your own.
So right now we're handling that volume on our own. But moving forward, again, if and when we do open our doors and start to have people come in, and that staff that's been repurposed to make these calls are going to be repurposed back to their prior positions, I could see that being a volunteer need.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. It looks like Lou has several comments, so we will wait for those to come in just a moment. If anyone else has questions, just go ahead and fire away. We've still got about 5 more minutes on the call with Abby, so we can pick her brain right now. I guess back to the call center question, just a follow-up question of my own. Have you guys started to do those calls remotely, having employees or volunteers doing, essentially operating, the call center from home, or is that all happening from the county complex?
It's a mixture. So we have some individuals who are making the calls from home. We have the majority of our staff is working from home. We have very skeleton crew. Obviously, I'm at home. Very skeleton crew at the centers. And so there's some individuals who they just would rather come into the office and just do it there for various distractions, which I can understand as you see my dog roaming behind me. But no, it's a hybrid, and it's not you have to come into the office. We do have there's obviously some security pieces of it. We don't have volunteers right now doing it, and that the volunteers would have to come into the center because of the confidential information. And so there's those pieces of it as well. But yeah, two different ways of doing it.
Right, absolutely. Looks like we're still waiting for Lou's comments, so we'll see if those come in. Donald, thank you, Donald, for pointing out that the Sparks Police Department does do senior phone patrol and welfare checks every day. That is crucial, and we are so grateful for all of our frontline and first responder workers and personnel who are out doing these things every single day. So big thanks to the City of Sparks, City of Reno, Washoe County Sheriff's Office for the part that they're playing in keeping our seniors safe as well. Are there any other questions out there that are burning questions that you need to get answered right away? Let's see. It looks like we've got a couple things coming in. We've got Donna, who says your programs serve the most vulnerable elders, people with low income or need services, but there are lots of elders who are healthy with no underlying health conditions who take precautions to stay safe. We'd like to help you when the restrictions lift. How can we help you?
Hi, Donna. So I think that is one thing that should be pointed out is there's many older adults that are perfectly healthy and they're fine and they don't have to maintain at home. As of right now, our programs are operating this way for everyone and to maintain everyone's health and well-being. But as we move forward and restrictions start to lift, again, I see a volunteer need. I see a volunteer need, not how we've had it before. And it could be volunteers that are calling people, not necessarily on the Meals on Wheels program, but our other clients, of being a friendly visitor and not being a professional checking in, that it's not a caseworker checking in, it's a peer-to-peer. I can see that being a support, and again, possibly being in our centers and helping navigate keeping that social distancing. I think this is obviously uncharted territory, and so I am open to suggestions and ideas, and many of the things that we put into place have been someone saying, what if we did this? And that sounds like a great idea. None of us have experienced anything like this before. So if people have ideas of how to participate and be a part of this, that would be great.
Awesome. So I guess to close out our time, is there a way, Abby, that we can get in contact with you if we have an idea or we do want to volunteer? Is there an email address or phone number or website that you would direct us to?
Um, so all of, yes, see, all of the above. Um, to share my email with everybody, that's totally fine. That I can provide the main senior services phone number, which is 328-2575-2575. If you want to talk to a real live person, I think you dialed 9, extension 9. The website through the county HSA Senior Services has a great deal of information to not only talk about what we do, but some COVID-19 resources as far as food goes. My information is on there as well. I think my email's on there. I think it'll direct you through. So yes, any way you want to get in touch with me. My volunteer coordinator, his name is Todd Aker. He's pretty amazing. He's also in charge of nutrition, so he's been spread pretty thin.
Yeah, pretty busy.
I can funnel all of that through him. If anyone is interested in being a volunteer, please just contact me and I'll get you in touch with Todd.
Awesome. Well, Abby, I thank you again for taking time to talk to us today about the lay of the land, what's going on with the seniors in our community, and how you're serving them, and how we can come alongside and help our seniors and help you as you serve our seniors. So thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who's on the call. I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Abby, can you repeat the number, please?
Yeah, 328-2575.
Is that to you?
No, that's for the main senior services.
And then to get to you, what was your email?
It's A Badolato, A B as in boy, A D as in dog, OLATO.
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm a senior citizen.
It might be almost just easier for Christine to just send it out, but
A-D.
A B as in boy.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. D as in dog, OLAT as in Tom, O.
A-B-D-O, Badolato, Italiano.
It is. It's on the website, or Christine can send out my
Yes.
info.
We'll go ahead and make sure Abby's email is included in our email briefing tomorrow.
Badolato at what?
WashoeCounty.us.
Okay. May I just mention a couple of things which I told you, Ann? I wanted to say something.
Anne did not mention to me that you had anything you needed to say, but yeah, go ahead and take a minute.
This is a Meals on Wheel that I was delivered just on Tuesday that I just heated up. So it's
wow.
spectacular. So I'm a recipient of your program, by the way.
Awesome.
And I'm very happy for it. And I'm a food photographer, and I didn't even style this, by the way. But it's wonderful, and it tastes great. And I'm actually a food photographer from New York City, Abby. I don't think you know who I am or whatever. But basically, I'm very happy with the program. I'm not used to this kind of generosity, especially being from New York City. And I'm overwhelmed, and I'd love to help any way that I can. And I'll be in touch with you offline, I guess. You can reach me, lumana.com.
All right. Well, thank you, Lou.
And thank you so much for everything that you're doing for the seniors. And I'd love to be involved in helping. And one way that I can help is I have a virtual variety show. Can you tell?
No.
Every Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific time on a Zoom. If you go to virtualvarietyshow.com, and what I do is basically hang out with friends, family, and people. They can just log on for about an hour or whenever they want to, and we just hang out and talk. And I call it my virtual living room.
Awesome.
And we just some people perform music, some people tell jokes like me, and we just have fun. So it's a good way for people to socialize.
Nice. All
Yep.
right. Lou, thank you so much for
Well,
sharing that.
thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for everything that you do, Abby. And Shelley is wonderful, by the way. She's been the person that I'm dealing with. And I never thought I would have Meals on Wheels, but it's just such a wonderful program. And I'm honored to be part of it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you so
Well,
much.
I'll give that feedback to my staff. They're a pretty amazing crew.
They really are. And Terrence and Mark have been wonderful delivering too.
Good.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you. And thanks everyone again for being here. We will see you again soon.
All right, take care, and thank you for doing this.
Everyone.
All right, bye.